Have you ever wondered where the television signal you are watching is coming from?
Welcome to True North.
Good evening and welcome to Maine Watch.
Welcome to From the Vault, a celebration of 60 years of Maine Public Television. Over the decades, Maine Public has recorded many performances by some of our state's best storytellers. So in this episode, we will bring you a couple more of those, one of which has not been seen in over 30 years. First up, we will travel to 1977 for an episode of the music series Shivaree. This one features Kendall Morse and Marshall Dodge with some classic tales and songs. Then we will go to 1988 for an excerpt from the 1987 edition of the Maine Storytellers Festival from Rockport. This was part of a 90-minute special hosted by John MacDonald, another of Maine's legendary storytellers. He, along with Tim Sample and Joe Perham, performed in what was the second annual festival, but we are going to feature the last 30 minutes, which was Kendall Morse performing his solo show. We'll bring you that first hour on a future program of From the Vault. Now, have a beverage handy because you are in for some wicked dry humor there, chummy. Let's start back in 1977 with Shivaree.
Sun comes up and the sun goes down. Hands on the clock keep going around. You just get up and it's time to lay down. Life gets tedious, don't it? I open the door and the flies swarm in. I shut the door and I'm sweating again. Move too fast and crack my shins. Just one damn thing after another. Tin roof leaks and the chimney leans. There's a hole in the seat of my old blue jeans. I've ate the last of the pork and beans. Just can't depend on nothing. Shoes untied, but I don't care. I ain't figuring on going nowhere. I'd have to wash and comb my hair. That's just wasted effort. Hound dog howling so forlorn. The laziest dog that ever was born. He's howling 'cause he's sitting on a thorn. He's just too tired to move over. My old brown mule, he must be sick. I jabbed him in the rump with a pin on a stick. He humped his back, but he didn't kick. There's something cockeyed somewhere. There's a mouse charring on the pantry door. He's been at it now for a month or more. When he gets through, he's gonna be sore. 'Cause there ain't a damn thing in there. Water in the well's getting lower and lower. Can't take a bath for 6 months more. I've heard it said, and it's true, I'm sure, that too much bathing will weaken you. Cow's gone dry and the hens won't lay. And the fish quit biting last Saturday. Trouble's piling up day by day. Now I'm getting dandruff. Grief and misery, pain and woe, death and taxes, so it goes. Now I'm catching cold in my nose. Life gets tasteless, don't it?
Farmer, I've been driving up this hill for 3 hours. Isn't there any end to it?
Oh, hell, stranger, there ain't no hill here. You just lost your 2 hind wheels.
I'm going to Portland.
Well, go right ahead. I ain't stopping you.
Well, can I take this road to Portland?
Well, you can, but they got more than enough roads down to Portland they need.
There's a sign beside the road. One arrow points to Portland to the right and the other points to Portland to the left. Does it make any difference which road I take?
Not to me, it don't.
Well, how far is it to Portland?
Oh, it seems further than it is, but you'll find out it ain't.
How many miles is it to Portland?
About 30,000 the way you're headed, and some stretches of mighty wet wheeling.
Well, how do I get to Portland? I've got to get there before sundown. Can't you give me any idea as to how to get there?
Oh, you want to get to Portland? Why didn't you say so? What you do is you go down this road for about 15, 30 miles or such a matter. Changes to dirt now and again, but you stay right on this road. Down there a ways you're going to come to a blueberry factory on the right. And you turn left about 2 miles before you get to that factory. Then you turn right again at the first intersection. Then you turn left 2 more times, just this side of where the old church used to be. You come to a fork in the road. Now let me see. You know, I can't for the life of me remember which one of them roads goes to Portland, but by the time you get there, you're going to be so damn lost that it won't matter anyway.
Well, can you tell me how come, for what reason, those cows don't have any horns over there?
Well, there's a lot of reasons why cows don't have horns. Sometimes they get diseased and they fall off. And sometimes you have to cut them off so they don't hook the other cattle. But the reason that particular animal doesn't have any horns is because it's a horse.
Well, I see that you got an awful lot of rocks in that pasture. Where'd you get all those rocks?
Well, they tell me the glaciers brought them.
Glaciers? Well, I don't see any glaciers. What is this glacier you're talking about? Where is it?
Well, they've gone back for more rocks, I guess.
Well, now, are those the rocks that stove up your wagon wheel over there, I see?
Well, those are the rocks. I didn't do it, the hired man did.
Is he the same fellow who ruined your daughter?
Yeah.
Clumsy, ain't he? Frost. You asked me if I had any frost to my place this morning. Well, this morning I woke up about 5 o'clock. Ain't never been a lay-a-bed in the Perkins family for as long as anyone can remember, and I jumped into my pants and pulled on my boots and headed down over them stairs of mine. Now them stairs, I don't want none of them steep, narrow stairs where you break your neck going up and down them like a ladder. My stairs have got 12-inch treads and only 5-inch risers. And you don't wear no holler in the middle of them stairs neither, 'cause they're made out of solid oak. And alongside them stairs I got me a red cherry banister, and at the foot a newel post made out of curly ash. And the combination of red cherry and curly ash, it's awful nice in the early morning light. At the foot of them stairs I got me a sitting room, and over in the corner of that sitting room I got me a red plush sofa, and at the head of it a standing lamp with a circular burner and a cream-colored globe. And I don't think nothing of lying on that sofa Thursdays when the Clarion comes out, just to read until almost 8:30 before I go to bed. And I head through my dining room, and I got wainscoting all around that dining room made out of butternut wood, but gosh, it just gives you an appetite to look at it. And I went into the kitchen, and I got myself a big black Clarion stove in the center of that kitchen, and it's got 5 or 6 controls onto it, and it takes more than a teaspoonful of brains to operate, but maybe that's why there ain't so many of them stoves around today. I can cook 5 dishes on that stove all at once and cook them just right. In the back on the left, that's the hottest part of the stove, and that's where I simmer steaks. And a little further forward on the left, that's where I make soups by boiling bones. And way up front is the waiting area where the pork waits for the beans and the butter waits for the clams. And over on the right, that's the thawing part of the stove where I thaw out the shellac for spring painting. And now up above that stove, I got me some cabinets built right into it, and that's where most folks keep the salt and pepper to keep them dry, and that's where I shove my bills and let them age for 2-3 months. Well, then I headed out toward my privy. Now, I always say that a fellow who ain't regular in his habits ain't going to amount to a hill of beans, and if you're going to be regular, you got to have your privy built just right. It ought to be quartering into the wind, because it makes a mighty sight of difference with the draft that comes up through the holes. And if you're going to have a well-built privy, you got to have the seat just right. It ought to be sanded down with real fine sandpaper. Should be made out of boxwood, because you don't get no cracks in boxwood. They can be quite startling. Well, after I got through with the privy, I headed out toward my cow pasture, and now the Lord giveth and he taketh away, but my cows taketh and give back 5-fold. I opened up the gate to let a cow out, and I happened to look down on the ground, and there, on the grass, was just a little mite of frost.
As I sat down one evening within a small cafe, a 40-year-old waitress to me these words did say, I see that you are a logger and not just a common bum, for nobody but a logger steers his coffee with his thumb. My lover was a logger, there's none like him today. If you'd pour whiskey on it, he would eat a bale of hay. He never would shave the whiskers from off of his horny hide. He'd drive 'em in with a hammer, then bite 'em off inside. My lover came to see me on one freezing day. He held me in a fond embrace that broke 3 vertebrae. He kissed me when we parted, so hard that he broke my jaw. I couldn't speak to tell him he forgot his mackinaw. I saw my lover leaving, sauntering through the snow, going bravely homeward at 48 below. The weather, it tried to freeze him, it tried its level best. At 100 degrees below zero, he buttoned up his vest. It froze clean through to China, it froze to the stars above. At 1,000 degrees below zero, it froze my logger love. They tried in vain to thaw him, not a muscle could they stir. So they made him into axe blades to chop the northern fir. And so I lost my lover, and to this cafe I come, You remember that stuff they put in our food back during World War I to keep our minds off the women?
What was it? I can't remember.
I don't either, but it's starting to work.
You know, I've been losing my powers, too. 'Course, my wife don't help much. She's some ugly. God, her eyes is crossed. They are so crossed that when she cries, the tears run down her back.
Well, I don't know if that's worse than my problem or not. My wife is so skinny, you wouldn't believe it. I remember, back before we was married, she was so skinny back then that one time she swallowed a prune pit and 3 guys left town.
That's some skinny.
Well, that's not the worst of it. Now she's ugly, too. In fact, she's so damn difficult. I take her everywhere I go because I'd rather do that than kiss her goodbye.
Well, it's got so now that my wife is so ugly that I got to feed her with a slingshot.
Last summer, in Portland at a bus stop, the bus pulled up to the curb and stopped. There was a fellow from New York standing there on the sidewalk. He had a Great Dane dog with him. The bus driver looked at him and he looked at the dog. He says, "You can't bring that dog on this bus, you know." Well, the fellow, of course, he got defensive about his dog, and he said, "Guess you know what you can do with your bus." Bus driver says, "Yeah, if you can do the same thing with your dog, you can get on." This may take some coaxing to get this thing in gear. I had a horse and his name was Bill, and when he ran, he didn't stand still. He ran away one day, and I ran with him. He ran so fast he couldn't stop. He ran into a barber shop and exhaustionized with his eye teeth in the barber's left shoulder. I had a gal, her name was Daisy, and when she sang, the cat went crazy with delirium, St. Vitamins, and all sorts of cataleptics. One day she sang a song about a man who turned himself inside out and jumped into the river. He was so thirsty. I went up in a balloon today. People on the earth, they look like a pig, like a mice, like a katydid, and also like little people. Balloon turned up with its bottom side higher. I fell on the wife of a country squire. She made a noise like a hound dog, like a steam whistle, and dynamite. I'm going out in the woods next year and hunt for bear and not the deer. I ain't, I'm a great sharpshootress. Shooting birds, I am a beaut. There is no bird I cannot shoot. In the eye, in the ear, in his tail, or fingernails. In Frisco Bay there lives a whale, and she eats pork chops by the pail, by the hatful, by the bucketful, by the hogshead and schooner. She likes to laugh, and when she smiles, you just see teeth for miles and miles, and tonsils, and spare ribs, and things too fierce to mention. What can you do in a case like that? What can you do but stomp on your hat and your grandmother and your toothbrush, and everything else is helpless?
Kendall, understand that you're burying your pa.
Got to, he's dead.
They say he was a self-made man.
Well, if he was, it sure relieves the Almighty of a terrible amount of responsibility.
Aren't you afraid that you're digging that grave a little too shallow, Kendall?
No, not really. He ain't ever going to get out of it.
Well, how come they didn't build a fence around this graveyard?
Well, there's no point building a fence when them that's inside ain't getting out of there, and them that's outside is no hurry to get in.
Have you ever had it that they didn't pay you for digging a grave?
They pay or up he comes.
Kendall, what's the death rate around here?
Oh, 1 to a person. Now, you've been asking a lot of questions. I'd like to ask you one. How old are you anyway?
95.
Hell, it don't hardly pay you to make the trip back to town.
Never forget that time when I was raking leaves on one of them cold, raw, foggy days you get along the coast of Maine. Mr. Smith come out and asked me if I'd like to come in and get warmed up by the fire and have a little something to drink. Well, I said, Mr. Smith, I'd like first rate to get warm, but I'll not have anything to drink. I haven't had anything to drink for over 35 years, but I recollect just like it was yesterday, that last time I partook of spirits. I was building boats in them days, and I was also building coffins. I built most of the coffins that them folks are buried in up on the hill. And I just finished a catboat for Henry Furness's boy when Charlie Pierce come down. He run the general store and did the undertaking on the side. And he said, I got to have me a coffin by Thursday. I said, it's awful short notice, Charlie. He said, I know it is, so I brung you down a jug of Barbados rum. Well, I didn't spare myself none, nor may I say did I spare that rum, and Wednesday night I went to bed feeling pretty good and proud of a job well done. In the morning, Charlie come over, and I showed him out to the shed, and I noticed he started some as we walked in through that shed door. And there that coffin stood, and it had a rudder and a centerboard on it.
We'll rant and we'll roar like true Newfoundlanders. Rant and we'll roar on the deck and below, until we see bottom inside the two sunkers. Straight for the channel, the Toslow will go. My name it is Robert, they call me Bob Pittman. I sailed on the Ino with Skipper Joe Brown. I'm bound to have Polly or Biddy or Molly as soon as I'm able a pint to cast down. We'll rant and we'll roar like true Newfoundlanders. Rant and we'll roar on the deck and below, until we see bottom inside the two sunkers. Straight for the channel, the Toslow will go. I'm the son of a sea cook, a cook and a trader. I can dance, I can sing, I can reef the main boom. I can handle a jigger, I cuts a fine figure whenever I gets in a boat standing room. We'll rant and we'll roar like true Newfoundlanders. Rant and we'll roar on the deck and below, until we see bottom inside the two sunkers. Straight for the channel, the Toslow will go. If the voyage is good and this fall I will make it, I want £2.10 for a ring and a breeze, couple of dollars for clean shirts and collars, a handful of coppers to make up the fees. We'll rant and we'll roar like true Newfoundlanders. Rant and we'll roar on the deck and below, until we see bottom inside the two sunkers. Straight for the channel, the Toslow will go. Thanks for meeting me at the station here, Judge. I've been gone a couple of weeks. Tell me, is there any news since I've been gone?
No, sir, there's been no news. But since you mentioned it, it don't amount to much. Since you've been away, your dog died.
My dog died? What happened to my dog?
Well, sir, he ate some of the burnt horseflesh, and that's what killed the dog.
Burnt horseflesh? Where do you get a hold of burnt horseflesh?
Well, so when the fire cooled down, the dog went and ate some of the burnt horseflesh, and that's what killed the dog.
What fire? What are you talking about?
Well, the barn burned down, burned up all the cows and the horses. And when the fire cooled off, the dog went and ate some of the burnt horseflesh, and that's what killed the dog.
What happened to the barn? How'd the barn burn down?
Well, so the sparks from the house, they flew over, lit onto the barn roof, burned up all the cows and horses. When the fire cooled off, the dog went and ate some of the burnt horseflesh, and that's what killed the dog.
The sparks from the house? What happened to the house?
Well, so that burned down completely.
How did the house burn down?
Well, the flames from the candles lit onto the roof, and then the sparks from the roof went over and lit onto the barn, burned up all the cows and horses. When the fire cooled off, the dog went and ate some of the burnt horseflesh, and that's what killed the dog.
The candles? How come you had candles? We got electricity.
They was around the coffin.
Oh, my God, who died?
Oh, you needn't worry about that, sir. Your mother-in-law died.
My mother-in-law? What happened to her?
Well, people say that she died from the shock of your wife running away with the stable boy. But aside from that, sir, there ain't no news.
Did you ever hear of the burglar bold who went to rob a house? He goes and hides a window as quiet as a mouse. He goes and hides a window while the people were asleep. All the money that he could find was under the bed to creep. The burglar, he crept under the bed and he kept quite close to the wall. If he'd have known 'twas an old maid's room, he'd have never had the gall. About 9 o'clock the maid came in. "How tired I am," she said. Thinking that everything was all right, she never looked under the bed. She took out her teeth and a big glass eye and the wig from the top of her head. The burglar had 17 kinds of fits as he peeked from under the bed. From under the bed the burglar crawled, he was a total wreck. The old maid jumped out of the bed and grabbed him around the neck. The old maid never fainted away, but just as cool as a clam. Said, "I've been a maid for 50 years, now I found myself a man." A revolver she aimed at the burglar's head, and these are the words she said: "Now, young man, you must marry me, or I'll blow off the top of your head." The burglar was looking around the room, didn't see no place to scoot. He looked at the wig and the big glass eye, and he said, "For God's sake, shoot."
Shivaree is a videotaped production of the Maine Public Broadcasting Network. If you have any suggestions concerning Shivaree or who you'd like to see on the program, please drop us a card at MPBN, Box 86, Orono, Maine, 04473. That's Box 86, Orono, 04473. I'm Susan Tibbetts. Good night, and thank you for watching.
Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me all right, dear? Well, if you can, then you're tuned to one of the stations of the Maine Public Broadcasting Network. Now, on behalf of MPBN, I'd like to invite you to join me, Tim Sample, that's me, at the Woodford's Congregational Church on November 9th from 7 to 9 p.m. Now, they ain't gonna ask you for any money, see? It ain't one of them things, see? This is one of them ideas, one of them deals where you get to ask them these questions, you know, that you always wanted to ask, like how come their radio stations don't play in the real good songs, like How Can I Miss You When You Won't Go Away, and How Come You Believe Me When I Told You That I Loved You When You Know I've Been a Liar All My Life. Now, if you're interested in television, this is your big chance, dear, to ask them all impertinent questions like, you know, what kind of toilet water does Alistair Cook use, or which one is McNeil and which one's Lyra, you know, questions like that. Now, anyways, you think up your own question, anything you want, and meet me at Woodford's Congregational Church, November 9th. It's right in Portland, see, anytime around 7 p.m. And we're going to have a wicked good time, dear.
Oh, hi. Oh, you wondering about this? No, I'm not listening to Michael Jackson or Madonna. I'm listening to a tape of last summer's Maine Storytellers Festival up there in Rockport. Let's see, there was Tim Sample, Joe Perham, Kendall Morse, and myself, all telling some pretty good down east stories, if I don't mind saying so myself. Why don't you come inside? I'll tell you more about it. You know, a lot has been said and written over the years about the art of storytelling, but I bet you could say and write a lot about the art of story stealing, too. Now, our next storyteller has his own ideas about where some of these stories might have come from. Matter of fact, while I get us some more coffee, why don't you start listening to Captain Kendall Morse?
One of the things that I would like to get into a little bit, if possible, is to point out the differences in Maine humor. Now, you think of Maine as one place, and on the map it is. But different areas of the state have their own kind of humor, or at least they did a few years ago. I come from the coast of Maine, and Joe Perham is from western Maine. And there are people from all over the state, and we've stolen so many stories from each other that they're all mixed up now, and you can't really tell where they come from. But if you're interested, you can usually tell a coastal Maine story because of its understatement, the way it's understated. It's kind of British and very constricted, understated, very dry and subtle. Whereas inland, where they've got all that expanse of land, you get into the tall tale, the more expansive type. And to give you an illustration, back home we had a fellow by the name of John Hubbard, and he was the most disagreeable, poison, miserable son of a gun you ever met in your life. Never had a friend. He alienated everyone, and nobody could ever think of anything good to say about him. There just wasn't anything. He was a total loss. Well, he died, and they had his funeral, and the minister was sweating buckshot. Because it's his job to stand up there and think of something good to say about the deceased. That's part of the training that they go through. Well, he couldn't. He just couldn't think of a thing, not even a clergyman. So finally he said to the congregation, there was a few people that did come to the funeral out of a sense of duty, told him, he says, I'm not going to preach a regular sermon here. What I would like is for any of his neighbors and friends to come up and say a few words about him. And then he went and sat down, hoping this was going to get him off the hook. But nothing happened. They shifted in their chairs and they coughed and cleared their throats, and there was a lot of nervous movement. squeaking of chairs and so forth. Finally, after about 20 minutes of this total silence that kept getting heavier and heavier, one fella couldn't stand it anymore. And he stood up, and all he said was, his brother was worse. Now that's typical coastal humor. It reminded me of the fellow that back home, he wasn't very bright. He wasn't wrapped very tight, as they say. He had a room upstairs that wasn't finished. Well, anyway, somehow he got himself a date. And he doesn't know what to do. Apparently she did. Anyway, somehow she wound up sitting on his lap. And he couldn't think of a cussed thing to say. He just didn't have any experience in that line. And the best he could do, finally, he says, "You know, you sweat the least of any fat person I know." Another example of coastal, you're not through with that one yet, of coastal humor is a very traditional and quite old, I'm surprised nobody else has picked it up yet, tonight anyway, about, there were two old maids who lived back home in Machias. He's heard it. And the name was Effie and Emma Dunbar. And they lived on the old family homestead all their lives up to that point. And they were quite well along in years. And neither one of them had ever married. They'd never had a date or anything like that, never had a boyfriend. Their mother had told them some kind of horror story about males when they were young. And they decided they didn't want anything to do with that sort of thing. And they were really paranoid about males. They wouldn't even let the milkman up on the porch. Made him leave the milk out by the mailbox. And they had a female cat for a pet. And they wouldn't even let the cat out for the same reason, on a smaller scale. And that went on for years. And something changed. I don't know what happened, but something took a drastic turn. And one of them did wind up getting married, very late in life. Went away on a honeymoon. A few days later, the other one that stayed behind got a postcard. All it said on it was, "Let the cat out." Did you ever hear of the burglar bold who went to rob a house? He goes and heists the window as quiet as a mouse. He goes and heists the window while the people were asleep. He heard a footstep on the stairs and under the bed did creep. The burglar, he crept under the bed and he kept quite close to the wall. If he'd have known it was an old maid's room, he'd have never had the gall. About 9 o'clock the maid came in. "How tired I am," she said. And thinking that everything was all right, she never looked under the bed. She took out her teeth and a big glass eye and the wig from the top of her head. The burglar had 17 kinds of fits as he peeked from under the bed. From under the bed the burglar crawled, he was a total wreck. The old maid jumped out of the bed and grabbed him around the neck. The old maid never fainted away, but just as cool as a clam. Said, "I've been a maid for 50 years, now I've found myself a man." A revolver she aimed at the burglar's head, and these are the words she said: "Now, young man, you must marry me or I'll blow off the top of your head." The burglar was looking around the room, didn't see no place to scoot. He looked at the wig in the big glass eye and he said, "For God's sake, shoot." I remember doing a performance in upstate New York one time, and I sang a song about Maine. And I noticed right in the front row there was a fella standing there with tears running right down his cheeks. And I thought, boy, this guy's homesick. He must be. Well, after the performance, I hunted him up and I said, I noticed that you were quite overcome there with that song that I sang from Maine, and I was wondering, are you from Maine? And he said, no, I'm a singer. I think I should have saved that one for later. Now, to get into the difference between coastal and inland humor, and to remind you that I remarked not long ago that I usually wait till a fellow's dead before I steal his material. We had a storyteller from Skowhegan, Maine, which is well inland, a fellow named Steve Merrill. And he had a lot of stories which were generously laced with exaggeration, shall we say. He told this one. Last summer was the worst fishing I ever saw in my life. I get into my boat last Sunday, and I get out on Sibley Bog. And I sat there for much as 2 hours, slapping black flies and mosquitoes, and I never got a bite. I was down to my last worm, but he didn't look too good. He didn't have much color to him. He'd been laying there in the sun for 2 hours, and didn't seem to have no sprawl to him. Well, I'd brought along a jug of Applejack, just in case of snake bite. And that was what was keeping me going, so I thought, well, I'll see if I can revive him a little. So I took a little bit of that Applejack and put it into the bait can and soused him around a little. He seemed to perk up. Put him on the hook, and damned if he didn't snap at me. Well, throwed him overboard, and it wasn't 5 seconds when I felt a wicked yank on that line, and I hauled it up, and there was a bass about that far from the boat. And he had bit that hook right in two. Sheared it right off just like a pair of side cutters. And that cussed little worm, he had a half Nelson around that bass's neck with one end of him, and he'd throwed a rolling hitch around what was left of the line on the other end and was yanking for me to haul him in. Well, I did. And I gave him another shot of Applejack and sent him down again. You know something? If he hadn't passed out on the 18th fish, there wouldn't have been a bass left in Sibley Bog. We happen to be right in the middle of where we invented fog. This is the fog capital of the world. You didn't know that. Well, a few years ago, there was a fellow come up here from, I'm not going to pick on New Jersey anymore, I'm going to say New York. He had a brand new boat, nice big yacht. And he pulled into Camden Harbor, and he was complaining about this boat. He'd talking to different people around the harbor, and he said he didn't have no sense of direction. He'd spent a fortune for this boat, and he had the worst time getting up here you could imagine. He wanted to go to Canada, but he just didn't dare to go any further. He was worn out. Well, I figured I knew what ailed him, well, the boat rather. So we fell to talking, and finally I told him, I says, I think I know what your problem is. Well, the upshot of it is we went out. And sure enough, my theory was right. See, what they'd done when they put the engine in the boat, they didn't calibrate the compass. And it was 30 degrees off. No wonder he couldn't get from one buoy to the other. Well, that was easy enough to determine. I told him that was what was wrong with it, nothing very serious. So we said, well, how do you calibrate a compass? Now, down off Rockland, the Navy has set up some trial buoys, and they are set precisely so that you can run back and forth between them on a predetermined heading and calibrate your compass. So down we went. Well, we got halfway down there, and the fog come in thicker than three in a bed. About like tonight. Well, he got worried. See, when it gets foggy like that, this is a shipping channel out here going up into Searsport, and some of them tankers 800 feet long. And he got quite worried. He says, boy, we've had it now. Our compass is no good. We don't know which way we're pointed. We don't have any radar. We could run right into the side of one of them great big vessels and splinter and sink, and they'd never know we'd hit them. So I told him, I says, now, when it's foggy like this and you don't know where you're headed, you navigate with potatoes. Well, that really stirred him up. He says, navigate with potatoes? How the hell do you navigate with potatoes? Well, it's very simple, down east trick, you see. I told him, I said, what we do is you take a bag of potatoes up on the bow and you throw them ahead of you, one to a time, like that. And when one of them don't splash, you turn. Most of the stories you have heard have been humorous ones. There are, of course, many good stories which are not humorous. And in order to help round things out a little bit, I'd like to tell you one that is not humorous. It's in the form of a poem which has been, for many centuries, a good way to tell a story. It's about a ship, and it was written by John Masefield. You probably know him best for his I Must Go Down to the Sea Again. That's very famous. And he's written many others. One of them is called The Loch Acre, and what happened to her. She were a clipper tall, with 27 hands in all. 20 to hand, and reef and haul, and a skipper to sail, and mates to bawl, tally on to the tackle falls. Heave now and start her, heave and fall. Hear the yarn of a sailor. 'Tis an old yarn, learned at sea. The crew was shipped, and they said farewell. So long, me totty, you lovely gal. We sail today, should we fetch to hell. It's time we tackled the wheel a spell. And the dockside loafers talked on the quay the day they towed her down to sea. Lord, what a handsome ship she be. Cheer her, sonny boys, 3 times 3. The dockside loafers gave her the shout as the red funnel tugboat towed her out. Aye, they gave her the cheer as the custom is, and the crew yelled back, give our love to Liz. 3 cheers for the old pierhead and the bloody stay-at-homes, they said. In the grayness, the coming on of night, she dropped the tug at the Tusker light. Topsails went to the topmast head to a chorus that fairly well woke the dead. Her yards were trimmed and she slanted south, with a royal set and a bone in her mouth. They crossed the line and all went well. They ate, they slept, they struck the bell. And I give you gospel truth when I state the crew could find no fault with the mate. But one night, off the River Plate, she freshens up and she blows like thunder. Buried her deep lee scuppers under. The old man, he says, I aim to hang on till her canvas busts or her sticks are gone, which the blushing loon he did, until at last overboard went the mizzenmast. Then a fierce squall hit the Loch Acre and buried her down to our waterways. The main shrouds gave and a forestay. Green seas carried the wheel away. Before the watch below had time to dress, she was clotted up in a blushing mess. She couldn't lay to nor yet pay off, and the decks were swept clean in the bloody trough. Her masts were gone, and before you knowed, she filled by the head and down she goed. Crew made 27 dishes for the big jack sharks and the little fishes. Over their bones the water swishes. Now the wives, the girls, they wait in the rain for a ship as won't come home again. Oh, I reckon it must be them headwinds, they say. She'll be home tomorrow, if not today. I'll just nip home and air the sheets and buy the fixins and cook the meats as my man likes, as my man eats. Home they go up the windy streets. They're thinking their men are homeward bound with anchors hungry for English ground. The bloody fun of it is they've all drowned. Hear the yarn of a sailor. 'Tis an old yarn, learned at sea. Request. It's not really a story, but it's a request, and I can't very well say no. It happens to be the national anthem of Rockport, Maine. And it has a chorus which, if you don't know, you're going to have to learn before you leave the town. It's the law. Call all hands, demand the capstan, see her cable running clear, heave away, and with a will, boys, for New England we will steer, rolling home, rolling home, rolling home across the sea, rolling home to old New England, rolling home, dear land to thee. That's the chorus. Up aloft, amid the rigging, blows a wild and favoring gale. Heave away, and with a will, boys, and we'll give her all her sail. Rolling home, rolling home, rolling home across the sea, rolling home to old New England, rolling home, dear land to thee. Fare you well, ye Spanish maidens, it is time to say adieu. Happy times we've spent together, happy times we've spent with you. Rolling home, rolling home, rolling home across the sea, rolling home to old New England, rolling home, dear land to thee. Round Cape Horn one frosty morning, and her sails were full of snow. Clear your sheets and sway your halyards, swing her off and let her go. Rolling home, rolling home, rolling home across the sea, rolling home to old New England, rolling home, dear land, to thee. Thank you. You've been a great audience.
The Rockport National Anthem. Kind of an appropriate way to end a Storytellers Festival up in Rockport, Maine, wouldn't you say? Well, there you have it. The Maine Storytellers Festival from the Rockport Opera House. Hope you enjoyed it. But look at me standing here yakking. I better get outside and finish my chores.
At 1,000 degrees below zero, it froze my log of love. They tried in vain.
Looks like the fog finally burned off. You might know the weatherman said it was going to be foggy all day, wouldn't you?
To chop the northern fir, and so I lost my lover, and to this cafe I come, and here I wait till someone steers his coffee with his